So I will talk about retrospectives today. This is one of my favorite topics. And what I also like about this Bathtub conferences, this is the first time my wife can also join me. And so my name is Marc Loeffler. I'm also a father of 2 boys, now sleeping in the bed upstairs, and sitting on my sofa doing these presentations. And you can reach me easy on Twitter. That's Marc Loeffler. That's always an easy thing. And yeah, when I started with retrospectives in 2006, or with Agile in 2006, retrospectives were already the meeting I had the most fun in, and I really like to facilitate and moderate these meetings. And I would just want to take you on a short journey what I learned during the last 2 or 3 years. But first of all, I would like you to ask that you maybe just take a short note for yourself. What do you expect to take home from this session? So you're here for a reason maybe, and so just take maybe some seconds to write down what you expect to take home. We'll just wait for a few seconds. It's scary to sit in front of a screen and nobody talks. Okay, so let's move on. First of all, what is state of the art of retrospectives? I assume that most of you who are participating in this Bathtub conference have some experience with retrospectives, and that most of you guys also know about the traditional retrospective flow from Esther Durbin and Anna Larsen, which is setting the stage, where you welcome everybody, just make clear that everybody has a voice, and lay down the rules for the meeting or the working agreements. Then you go to gather data, where you gather the data from the last iteration, from the last project whatsoever, using, for example, the timeline. And afterwards, you're generating insight, where you just dig deeper to find out, okay, why did some things happen? And the next step would then be, okay, what improvements can we take? And then it's the closing in the end. So this is the traditional retrospective flow. And this was also the flow I was using in the beginning. And but what happened to me, at least after the first month, was in the beginning I had really an increase of happiness because we had a high impact of retrospective results, and we had a lot of fun. We saw that we were moving forward, and everything looks fine. But then at some point in time, so about 3, 4, 5 months then, in the future, the impact of retrospectives went down, and also then in the end the happiness of retrospectives, of the participants for the retrospectives went down. So people were starting to say, yeah, why are we doing retrospectives? Doesn't make sense to me. We are talking about the same things again and again. We don't move anything forward anymore. And I was really thinking, why is this happening? And one of the reasons, at least for me, was and I also experienced in different teams, was that in the beginning it was quite easy to find solutions for the problems and challenges, because there were a lot of low-hanging fruits. Especially when we are talking about the own team, for example, it's easy to shift the daily stand-up from 9 to 10. It's an easy thing. You don't have to ask many people. Or it's easy to set up maybe a continuous integration server. So these are all easy things. And in the beginning, you see, yeah, we are moving forward. We're doing great progress. But at some point in time, my wife is slowing me down. That's nice. Thank you. At some point in time, you have harvested all these fruits. And I was thinking, okay, why is this happening? And this is where my personal journey began of the evolution of retrospectives. So I did a talk last year at the ACE conference, and was talking about introducing fun and variety to your retrospectives and also to your teams and meetings. Also the things Gitte was talking just before. I think it's really valuable, and it's really good to do these things. And I was having a talk at this ACE conference in Krakow. I can highly recommend this conference. The next will be in April. And so I talked about, okay, what can you do? What can you change in retrospectives to introduce more fun? And one of the ideas I had when I was asked to facilitate a retrospective at Aviva, it's a big software company at Lake Constance. They're building this famous virus scanners. And there was this European Cup coming up in Poland and Ukraine. And they said, yeah, why not? Why are we not just doing a soccer retrospective? And the idea of the soccer retrospectives, by the way, this is the stadium of the team from Frankfurt. It's the Commerzbank Arena. And so what you do normally first in soccer retrospectives is you are collecting terms together with your team. So that's more or less the set the stage area where you just sit together with your team and find out, okay, what soccer terms are there? What can you use? It's maybe the referee, it could be soccer player, it could be the defense, could be the keeper, the coach, the ball for sure. And you're just collecting all of these terms. And then what you try to do is you put your last iteration or your last project phase into 90 minutes of a soccer game. So you're building up a ticker. You could say a ticker. So you write down maybe something like, so in the 12th minute we lost one player, and or there was a foul in the 56th minute of the other team, or we had some late goals in the 89th and 19th minutes, which could mean that you have some late features finished maybe at the end of the sprint, and you're creating the picture of the whole sprint into a ticker, a live ticker, using soccer terms. So you should really use the terms you defined in the beginning and write it down. The next steps are then for sure the game analysis. As every team and every coach is sitting down after the match and discussing, okay, why did these things happen? And then for sure you have to prepare for the next match. So you have to define, okay, what are the next steps? What do we want to change? Maybe there are some new players you want to have, or maybe it's not a good idea to use handball players instead of soccer players in your team. So this is just one approach. And this approach is based on using metaphors in retrospectives. So I'm just picking a metaphor and then trying to find out how could I use this metaphor in a retrospective. When we were at the Agile conference in Barcelona last year, Git and I were trying to use, for example, the pirate metaphor for using retrospectives, and it's really fun. It's also really fun when you discuss with the team what happened in this live ticker, and there are some funny events arising, and so there was a lot of laughter when I did this retrospectives. Another thing I did to vary retrospectives was I used this so-called retrospective cookies. The idea is from Adam Weisbart. It's a coach from I think from California in the US, and he had the idea. Yeah, everybody loves this fortune cookies you can get at a Chinese restaurant. And what is now happening? I lost my screen somehow. Can everybody still see my screen? 1 second, there it is. So why not just use these fortune cookies and put into the fortune cookies, just put some deep questions, some challenging questions to ask for the team. So at the beginning of the retrospective, everybody gets a fortune cookie, and you can even eat them. You can even order them at retrospectivecookies.com. And then everybody opens his cookies and just read out aloud what is written in the cookie. For example, what was the most helpful thing the Scrum Master did the sprint? Why was it helpful? This is one thing you can have. And then everybody can write silently down maybe and discuss later, or you can start an open discussion with everybody. It's just one idea you can try out in your retrospectives. And what I really like in this question is these questions are also quite focused on the team and not so on the outside of the team, because a lot of teams tend to blame the people around them instead of looking at what maybe can be in our team. Another thing you can do, which is also really, really easy, is change the location. So why are you doing your retrospectives in the same room again and again? This boring meeting room with maybe boring old furniture, or with this bad light maybe. And why not just go out to the wood, which is maybe nearby your office, and just find some nice place, maybe some barbecue place in the wood. Just sit down and try to also embrace the environment around you to use in retrospectives. Maybe you can just look at some big tree beneath you and just ask the team, so maybe what's the difference between our team and this tree? Or what can we learn maybe from this tree? What we can use. So the tree has strong roots maybe, or he's really high. So you can really use also some metaphors here in your retrospectives. Or when you're at the river, for example, you can have a look at the river and find, okay, the river is flowing, and what can we learn from the river, how he's going around impediments, for example. Or just go to your favorite pizza place. This is also something. Just go to your favorite pizza place or a big pizza, and then find out, okay, just look at this nice salami pizza and find out, okay, what is the difference between the salami pizza and our team. So this is also an idea. But even if you don't embrace the environment, just to change the location will give you some new energy and some new ideas. And I did this presentation, and in the end of this presentation, I checked my Twitter timeline, and I found out that Bob Marshall, so the flow chain sensor, I think most of you know him, wrote down, yeah, that's a nice thing, but it's just doing the wrong thing right. So I said, hey, what does he mean? Why is it just what is doing the wrong thing right? What is he talking about? So I approached him and asked him that if he can talk, and we sat down at the bar, and then he just pointed me to a blog post he just recently wrote, and he said, yeah, it's nice to introduce fun and laughter and hilarity, but if you're introducing all these things but still doing the wrong thing, it's just doing the wrong thing right, and so you don't have any benefits. If things like purpose are missing, then why are you introducing fun? It's just a waste of time still. And that kept me thinking and brought me to my second evolution, which is inject purpose into retrospectives. So I reworked my presentation, and as I was also talking about retrospectives at the AL conference in Barcelona last year, I introduced this inject purpose into retrospectives. He really kept me thinking, and I really wanted to find out, okay, how can you possibly do it? What is purpose? When you look it up in Wikipedia, you find out purpose is the object toward which one strives or for which something exists, an aim or a goal. And this is something really important. And I'm quite sure that some people of you also read this book from then you think about drive, the surprising truth about what motivates us. So there's also purpose. So you have autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So also other people think purpose is quite an important thing. But why is it missing? Why is purpose missing in the meetings? If you go to a meeting and it's not really clear to you why you're attending a meeting, and it's not clear to you what the outcome maybe will be, or maybe you had some meetings before of the same thing, and there was no real outcome, and you were just standing still and not moving forward. So you're just losing the purpose, and the people they don't believe in the meeting anymore. And could also be that maybe the project you are in has lost its purpose. Could also be. So how can you introduce purpose into your retrospectives? What can you do to do this? And what I did, I just took the 5 phases from Esther Derby and Diana Larsen and add hypothesis to retrospectives. So the flow looks like that. So you have still the set the stage phase, but then you have a phase where you are checking your hypothesis. So the idea is that in the end of your retrospectives, when you're writing down the activities or the things you want to do in your next iteration, the things you want to change, you're doing it because of what? What do you think will change when you do these activities? So what do you think, how will the system change, and what things will be different in the future? Because if you decide what to do, you already have some idea in your head why you are doing these things. You generate some insight and you said, yeah, this maybe is a good idea. Let's, for example, simple thing. You have daily stand-ups in the morning and still 3 people are already late or don't attend the meeting at all. And just sitting together, and then you decide, let's move the start time of the retrospectives, the daily stand-up from 9 to 10. And 2 weeks later you meet again and check the hypothesis and find out, so we moved the daily scrum from 9 to 10, but still 2 people are missing. So you still have more or less the same problem. You still have the same challenge. Still you have some people not attending. So the thing you decided to do didn't have the effect you thought it would have. So your hypothesis was somehow wrong. So what hypotheses are really helping you is to focus on one thing and really iterating through this thing until you have finally just, it's just a way and you have improved this area. And instead of what most teams now do, they just have a checklist and say, yeah, we did all these activities we decided in the last retrospectives, but nobody's really checking if these things had an effect on the system around them. And this way you're always checking, so explicitly checking, did this have the desired effect or not? And if not, then just find out why not and maybe improve the process to find a solution to the problem. And I really like this. So in combination with a fun and variety and this explicitly checking the hypothesis, I had the feeling that now the things are moving forward better, and yeah, it seems that the teams really liked it, but there was still something missing for me. And what was missing was an important part, at least from my point of view, and this is, why are we doing Agile at all? Why are we doing this? Because we are in a complex adaptive system somehow. So you can't really plan for the future, you don't know what will happen. So you do it because you know you're in a complex environment. And it seems to me that this is something that the coaches know, maybe some Scrum Masters know, but the team don't really know about these things. So what is important is to introduce system thinking to your teams. So not only the coach or the Scrum Master or some other guys should know about these system thinking, what system thinking is about. You should also try to introduce system thinking in your team to really make them aware of the system they are in. The important part here is that still a lot of people have some linear thinking. They think they do an action and this is the end of the process. And they completely forget that everything they do has, again, an effect on people, on processes, on systems around them. And so you really have to make them aware that everything they do has an effect in the end. And they have to find out, okay, what effect does it have? And also it's quite important to, when you get a clue about system thinking, is you give them the tools that they know, okay, what can we actually maybe change in our system? There's a short explanation about system thinking. Maybe it's not that interesting for most of you, but system thinking is the process of understanding how things regarded as systems influence one another within a whole. And I think this is a really important thing. So this won't be about system thinking. So there are great books out there if you want to get an introduction. So there's Thinking in Systems from Donella H. Meadows, for example, or from my point of view, even better one is The Fifth Discipline from Peter M. Stench. It's a really great book. I really enjoyed reading this book. So if you want to get a clue about system thinking, just read this book. That's great. So again, the question. Maybe you don't have the time, money, budget, or whatever to send your whole team maybe to maybe a Kinefin training of Dave Snowden. And but you still want to use maybe your time wisely to introduce them system thinking. So why not just using retrospectives to he thinks. And for me, it's maybe the best meeting to do this. And you can just start with a simple practice, which is called put on the classes. And what is meant with put on the classes is that you ask the team to put on a class, for example, of the product owner. So you can ask them, okay, what would the product owner do? Or what do you think would a product owner change in our team that we are better? Or hey, what does management think about us? Or maybe what is the customer thinking about us? So just think about your customer, maybe have some user profiles defined, and so personas defined, and they say maybe you have this persona of Michael Müller. So what maybe does he think about this new product features, and maybe what are his wishes for our company and for our team? What would he change? And this helps really the people in the team to find out, yes, there are people out there, out of our team, and yes, they are affected by the things we are doing, and maybe they have a completely different view and a completely different idea what we can change. So this really helps them. It's for me, it's a starting point to really put on the classes of different people. It all works quite nicely in private life. So if you're somewhere and some person approaches you and he's really angry at you, maybe it's not because of you. Maybe just he had some bad experience some minutes ago. You don't know. So just try to get into the mind of a different person. For me, this is the starting point to get in touch with system thinking. Then there is this nice tool out there. It's called the causal loop diagrams. It's, I would say, the tool of system thinking. So every system thinker, I think, uses this tool. I will just give you a short introduction of the causal loop diagrams. So the idea of a causal loop diagram is really to write down your system with all the things that have an effect and influence on other variables of your system, and to write down how these things affecting each other. So, for example, I will just give you some of the elements. I won't explain all of the elements of causal loop diagram because we don't have the time for this. So this, for example, is a balancing loop, which means the whole system is balancing itself out. So if there's increase of quality, the customer satisfaction will also increase, because if you have a high quality product, the customer will be satisfied. So the S here means same. So if the quality is increasing, the same happens to customer satisfaction. If customer satisfaction is increasing, also the demand will increase. So all the same effect. But if the demand is increasing, maybe you're not able to really hire some new developers within a week or two, then maybe the quality will decrease, because now you have more work to do, and so the quality is decreasing, which means customer satisfaction is decreasing again, which means demand is decreasing, and then you have again more time for other things, so quality is increasing. So it's just a simple example. It's clear that this can't be a complete example, but just to show you what is a balancing loop about. Then you have the so-called reinforcing loop and all the constraints. And reinforcing loop means it's some kind of a vicious cycle, so it's really not balancing out, but it's getting more and more and more and bigger and bigger and bigger until maybe there is some border it heads at some point in time. So for example, if you have some theater and you invest really into your theater, you have maybe better actors, you have better furniture, and all these things. Maybe so the reviews in media would also be better. So if the reviews in media are better, the ticket sales are increasing. And for sure, the ticket sales are constrained by the number of tickets you can possibly sell. But in the end, the profit will also increase. And if the profit increases, you can invest even more. Maybe you can then buy later on some more theaters. You can go to Broadway, whatever. So it's just something that's getting bigger and bigger. That's a reinforcing loop here. And for sure, you also have delays in your system. Not all the things that are happening in the system have a direct and immediate influence or effect on other things. So for example, if you think about antelopes and the population of antelopes, if there are more antelopes, there won't be more lions a day later, because it takes some time to make babies, as you maybe know. And So there's a delay in the system. And this is then, you have this delay here assigned with these crossings here. So there's a short example of the system. So I just will go through this quickly. So maybe if there's rain, there will be more grass. If there are more grass, there will be delayed increase of the antelope population. The antelope population is then again influenced by other predators. The more other predators, the less antelopes. The more antelopes, the more lions with delay. The more lions, the less antelopes again. But the more lions, there's also more disease transmission. The disease transmission has an effect also again on the lion population, that maybe then decrease again. And so there are a lot of elements, and you're really trying to write down your own system and find out how the things in your system affecting each other, to find out, okay, what levers do we have, what can maybe change in our system, and what effects does it have. For sure, you have to define, okay, where are the borders of our system, because you can't just write down the whole universe, doesn't work. But it's a helpful tool. Another helpful tool I was introduced about, I think, yeah, and just shortly before Christmas, when Joseph Perrine was at a HR breakfast at Lake Constance, he introduced us to the Abide model. And this is also part of the Kinefin model he has. And the Abide is acronym and the A stands for attractors. So attractors means there are attractors in your systems, like maybe a bonus, could be a new coach, could be the new laptop, new hardware, could be some interesting opportunities in a company. So these are attractors. So you can add attractors, you can maybe modify attractors to make them more attractive. Maybe they are not seen by everybody. You can remove attractors. So these are really things you can do in your system. There are also barriers. So there are barriers in the system, which means that define maybe the border of your system. So you can move barriers to increase your system. You can remove complete barriers. And maybe you even have barriers inside maybe of your development system, could be. So barriers can everything which has some effect on your team. You can also find out, okay, what barriers do we have. Then you have identities, which is mainly, okay, identities of team members, like having roles, like you have maybe a system architect, a developer, senior developer, a scrum coach, and so on. Maybe you decide, let's just remove all of these identities, and we are all the same. So this could be one effect you can have. And another one is diversity. So what diversity do you have in your team? Are all more or less the same people with the same mindset, thinking the same, or what can we do in our team? What diversity? And how can we get some dissent maybe? Because if all the people are the same, then there's no real dissent, no real discussions, and no real innovation in our team. So diversity means adding different people. I'm not talking about adding women and adding maybe men and do a mix up of men and women, because this is not really diversity. Diversity is really about people with different mindsets. And how can we influence diversity in our system? And last but not least, we have the environment. So we have the environment around us. We can find out, okay, how we can, what things are in our environment. You can start from a plant on your desk until the whole building. And so what this Abide model does is you can really use this Abide model to find out what are the different levers in your system that you as a team can influence. So you can then use, for example, the set the stage phase to explain the Abide model and collect with the team together all the attractors, barriers, identities, diversities, environmental things to find out, okay, these are the things we can affect as a team. So let's try out maybe some experiments. Maybe there are some things that were not so obvious to you in the beginning, but maybe are a good idea to use. And then you can use these the things you found using the Abide model throughout your retrospective to find the right levers and things you can maybe do to affect your system. So to make a long story short, to come to the end, I think it's really important to introduce fun directly to your retrospectives, because that's an important thing to have fun. But you need also some purpose why you're doing this. You need to have maybe some hypothesis what you want to change and what do you expect will change when you do some activities. And last but not least, you have to give your team the right tools that they know what can they really affect. And so it's really about fun, why, and what. And these three things for me form then the base for a good retrospective. So maybe you can check shortly your own hypothesis. So did you expect what I did? Did you expect the outcome here? Did you take some things home that you wrote down? And yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Marc. I think this was a very good overview about what retrospectives can be, and I can share my own hypothesis, which was I want to see variants of retrospectives. I think this was fulfilled, and I wanted to have retrospectives not to become too boring, which I think there are some tools in your toolbox which can help to achieve this. But now I want to have a look whether anybody else wants to ask questions. And my co-moderators, if you see anything, tell me please, or just skip in. Okay, not at the moment. What I think what was really good was I've written down the football example. I think it is much easier to tell your team or yourself that perhaps there are handball players in the team instead of football players than complaining about the professionality which is missing or something. So this makes it easier for the team to speak about these problems, I think. And something which I wrote was don't expect too much from a retrospective. And this perhaps can be improved by looking at the things from another perspective, getting into a distance, being an observer, not so involved as you are if you are part of the team and you're not so you're too close to the problem. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I totally agree. What this metaphor thing is doing, you're really talking about. And you're talking about the things that are happening in different terms, and this helps you to maybe also talk about the elephant that maybe is in the room, and still fun. So it's not that serious, and you can talk really about these things. So I totally agree with you. Yes.
Okay, because we had a question in the questions box during the last talk already, I can assure you that we are recording this conference, and you can have a look to the talks even afterwards, which perhaps is necessary to get all the information out of it. Thank you, Marc, once again.